Hi, welcome back to my channel. Ever since I bought this deck, I told myself that I was going to definitely review it and just show it online in general because I think it's such an underrated deck. I don't think anyone's well, a few people online have done reviews on this deck, but I don't think as many people know about this deck as much as they should, because when I show it in like Instagram stories and stuff, or if I do readings for people with this deck, often people ask what it is and who it's from, and like they're intrigued by the art style. And let me tell you this, I do not blame them. So I found this deck whilst I was shopping in the lanes in Brighton. There was a little witchy shop, and the art style of just the first image really intrigued me. I thought the boxes are in a really cute little like shape, because I think that a lot of Oracle and Tarot decks are so massive, so I liked the compact look of it, and I just couldn't get enough, and I had to open up the box and have a little peek inside. I was just mesmerized, to be honest. It takes me a lot to like an Oracle deck, it really does. It has to really draw me in to actually like it. It's a very female empowered fairy tale-esque Oracle deck. It's very based around witches, mermaids and princesses, so it's very fairy tale-esque. It's very whimsical, and it's actually created by a lady called Amanda Lovelace. Now I believe she is a poet. I had no idea about this lady. I have no knowledge on her, so I'm sorry if I'm like behind the times, but other people seem to like her. And this deck was actually based off of her poetry, so there's a lot of kind of connections that you might understand if you are a fan of her, because there's a lot of illustrations that go with the poem she's written, so it might help you actually understand the cards a bit more. The deck is illustrated by a girl called Medeiros. I'm so sorry if I've said that wrong, which I probably have, but she's a Brazilian freelance illustrator. Honestly, her stuff is what really sold me about this deck the most. It's such a beautifully illustrated deck, and it's very much focused around the idea of not needing rules to read tarot or oracle. Amanda Lovelace was inspired to make this deck because she felt like she couldn't learn traditional tarot in the way that you were supposed to. She found that it was hard to connect to her deck. She found that she couldn't learn all the definitions. It was really difficult for her. So she kind of just made her own deck to feel more connected with, but also to encourage other people that you don't need to do something within the guidelines that you're supposed to. Like, magic is truly about your own sense of self, like your own rhyme and reason, your own instructions and your intuition. It's like your gut feeling, and obviously everybody's is going to be completely different to the next. So I think the fact that this deck is illustrated by a fairy tale illustrator tells you a lot about the kind of images you get in this, but they are separated off into three categories. You have witches, princesses and mermaids. I like to see the mermaids in this deck representing the emotional side of things, so like cups and feelings and love. I don't know whether that's intentional, but that's kind of what I do. Princesses represent swords in my mind when I use this, because a lot of the cards represent the princesses holding swords because they're in castles and stuff. So I link that to the traditional tarot deck of swords being about the mind, the mouth, so speech, words, ideas, the mind, intelligence, learning, wisdom, and also sometimes like physical action, as well as being assertive and power, I guess. And then lastly, witches, fire. So I see that as like the wands of tarot, the traditional tarot, because wands I associate to witches. Witches kind of transform things, and I think they come with the most energy out of all of them. It makes sense to relate that to the element of fire or wands, because it's about movement, enthusiasm, creative, like artistic skill, your flair, your kind of the fire in your stomach. And I don't necessarily think she intended to do that, but I do like tarot so much. I don't often buy oracle decks, so to me I like being able to connect tarot to the oracle deck in order to read it a little bit better. Speaking of, I actually use this deck alongside my tarot quite often. It's quite rare that I will just pick up this deck and pull a card from it on its own. Like, I think I would suggest, if you get this deck, to pull a card from it every day as like your daily affirmation, or like an instruction or an energy that you should pick up on throughout the day. That's the best way to use oracle decks, in my opinion. But for me, that's never enough. Like with tarot, I like how it's more versatile. You can use it for lots of different things. I don't just like reading for advice and affirmations. I like to have a bit of a more context. You know, oracle decks often are quite vague and broad, and they're not very specific. So what I like to do with this deck is to put a card alongside a spread of tarot cards that I've already got out. So if I'm reading someone here, if I've got a client that I'm reading their cards for, or reading my own cards, I will then pull one of these to kind of give a general summation of everything going on, just to check in to see if they talk to each other and to see if they relate. It's sort of like my confirmation that the stuff I'm saying is correct. It's kind of like a bit of clarity in understanding the message as an overall. Sometimes I will also just use this deck to pull advice for somebody. If I'm reading like future love based stuff in someone's tarot reading, I will then maybe pull a card from here for advice in their love department. But for me, because they're quite vague messages in this, it doesn't feel like specific enough. But regardless, it's an incredible, really beautiful deck. So I would say my pros with this deck is definitely just how it looks, the art style. You can use it however you like. It's really, really good for beginners for that reason, because you can just pull one card a day and it's very self-explanatory. It comes with a book, it tells you what each card means. But then if you're more advanced, you can use it like I do and kind of use it alongside other practices that you already do. It might be a good deck to use while you're doing spell work maybe, or you're manifesting, you're making a vision board. It's a good way to sort of like inspire you, give you some boost of encouragement, or just something nice to look over. Like, it's just pretty, in my opinion. It's kind of like collecting artwork, like lots of pieces of artwork. And the way I want to use this deck kind of honors the way that Amanda Lovelace wants you to use the deck, in your own way. So they're my biggest pros. I would say my cons for this is the vagueness a little bit of the messages, but that's kind of what you get with oracle decks anyway. You know, it's very nicey. It's often why I shy away from oracle decks, because most are like that anyway. But this one kind of feels a little bit different because it's based around fairy tales. Like, that's what you expect, right? When you pick up a fairy tale oracle deck, you expect the airy fairy, the nicey. And the last con I would probably say is sometimes I find it hard to relate the imagery to the text underneath. So the text will tell you a key message from the card, and then you'll get the image to look at as well. And sometimes I find it hard to understand why that image is next to that text. And you'll see what I mean when we dive into the unboxing of this. I'd also probably add to the pros the fact it was pretty well priced. You can get this on Amazon. It's very accessible as well, which I soon realized after finding this in a shop in Brighton. I will leave a link down there. What I love about this art style, it's very me. You know, they're wearing clothes I would wear. It's very inclusive. It's filled with like different body types, different types of people. You kind of feel part of the environment that you're looking at, because the environment is so like telling. Like, I feel what she's thinking. I feel what the environment feels like. I feel part of like the picture, and the most powerful decks will do that. You know, art is supposed to make you feel things, right? We're trying to intuitively pick up on messages and give someone messages that we're feeling inside. We want to pick up on feelings and thoughts when the cards are laid out around us, because that's what helps us tell the story of what we're picking up on to somebody. Or if we're reading for ourselves, like, we want things to fly out of the cards into our face so we can like realign them with our intuition and work out what the key point of the entire reading is. Right, so here is the deck in question. I love the sort of attention to metallic detail. I'm a tarot person. If I buy an oracle deck, it means I really love it and feel very drawn towards it. So I love that this one made me fall for it. And I think what makes this deck really special is that If you like 5 of the cards, you'll probably like the rest of them. I like every single card in this deck, I think. Often I'll have favorites, and I think I will have favorites in this deck, but I often have favorites in tarot decks, and then the rest are like cool. But with these, there's just something really magic about each card. They all have their own little part of them, which I love so much. So I'm really excited to kind of dig into that with you. Believe in your own magic. A stunning new oracle deck based on her celebrated poetry series, Women Are Some Kind of Magic. It says each card offers daily messages of empowerment to stir your inner princess, witch, or mermaid. Whenever you're in need of some inspirational validation, this deck will be there to help you believe in your own magic. Perfect for beginners and suitable for practitioners at every skill level. I'll open up the box, and straight away you see the book that it comes with, and then we have the deck of cards. It sort of just gives you a little bit of extra information. It's not too much. I know a lot of oracle decks give you so much information that you don't even know what to do with all of it, and it's very overwhelming. So this deck isn't actually too bad if you want to pull multiple cards as well. I've actually pulled sometimes like 5 cards for one reading, and because there's so little to read and because the messages are quite straightforward, it doesn't get complicated and overwhelming. She mentions how anytime she considered learning, she always told herself she's not psychic enough to do it. She found it really difficult to remember the meanings and stuff. So she thought that she would make a deck that felt more connected to her. And, she spent nights sleeping with tarot cards under her pillow because she thought she would feel more connected to them if she did that. But instead, she was like, actually, I should listen to this voice that's telling me that these cards aren't right for me and I can't learn this way of doing your cards. And instead, bonding them with her own work and use your intuition and nothing else. You don't have to sit and learn all of the definitions and spend hours and hours on memorizing that. So that's why the deck's called Believe in Your Own Magic, basically. Just do it the way you want to. There's not a wrong or right. So there's 45 cards, which is less than the 78 deck that tarot usually is. So that's a benefit, I guess, of using oracle decks. You might feel less intimidated. I love this page. Aren't tarot cards and oracle cards evil? And then she's just put, no. They are bits of, illustration on a card. What's so evil about that? You can pick a card from this deck every day and put it on your altar as your daily card on your desk or next to your bed. So then you can kind of live your life intentionally with the card's message kind of constantly taking up a space in your head. And you can pull whenever you need empowerment or inspiration, she says here. She's got suggestions on how you should read, how you should shuffle. Basically mentions how she didn't create reverse meanings because they're usually associated with the opposite of the upright card. I don't necessarily believe in that. I guess she wants to make this deck as positive as possible, hence why she hasn't done any reverse meanings. There's a question here, can I ask the deck any question I want? I figured myself personally that this oracle deck isn't the best for asking questions. I mainly use it for a point of reference or a place of clarity. I would either do that or I would just pull a daily affirmation from this deck. That's the way I use this deck personally. She's got some examples of questions that you can ask the deck, and she basically highlights the fact that we know all of the advice that these cards will give. It's just sort of reminding us that we need to hear them at this point in time, which I think is really a really nice way of putting it, because I always say that tarot cards even don't give you new knowledge necessarily. It's more just highlighting something that you need to be really thinking about at this time, or something deep in your intuition that you might not be paying attention to. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the cards are separated out. So we've got the princess cards, and then she's given all the meanings. Witch cards, and then she's given all the meanings for these. Mermaid cards. I like how the very last card is mermaid, witch, and princess, though they're all kind of coming together. And then a little picture of her at the back, which is cute. And then the artist, which, the true gem. I mean, in my eyes, I think, I wish I could pronounce her name properly. Janaya, she's Brazilian, I'm so sorry. Check her on Instagram. And now we get to the good bit. And first of all, I want to address the backs of the cards having these little crowns on, which I think is just adorable. Now, the finish of these cards are quite matte. They don't stick to each other, they're matte, but they do glide, so it is it isn't a frustrating thing, if that makes sense. They slide with ease, so you can do some really nice fans with them on the table, yet they're not glossy enough to like fly about all over the table, so you've got this nice like matte finish with them. It's a very female empowered deck. I've got a lot of female empowered decks, like unintentionally. Like I don't have a lot of tarot and oracle decks with men in. That wasn't an intentional thing, but this seems to be another one, because I mean, card number 1 is in the princess category, and it's you can be your own knight. You know, she doesn't need anyone else to save her from that tower she's sitting in. She's the one with the sword, she's the one with the shield, she's got the bag there. It almost seems as though she's going to pop right out of that window and like start her own journey and go on her own adventure without anyone needing to come get her and come save her. So that would be a nice little affirmation for you when maybe you're waiting around for someone else, or you're asking about someone else and how they feel about you or your future with someone. You know, this is basically saying like concentrate on yourself and who you are. Evil Queen. This is a really nice image. I love the like witchy fingers, the witchy black sharp fingernails with this. I mean, all of these cards are based off Amanda Lovelace's poem, and this one in particular. Someone in your life is mistreating you. You keep trying to see the good in them, but they just keep disappointing you again and again. Truth is, some people don't deserve second chances. So maybe think about the areas in your life where people are providing you something. Is it positive stuff? Is it negative? Is it adding to you? Is it taking away from you? Like, do people have their best interest in you, basically? So that's really nice. I love this card because it kind of plays around with the tarot card of the Tower, the classic Tower card in tarot that everyone dreads and fears, but I love how like peaceful and lovely and welcoming this one is. Unplug and relax for a spell. So it kind of gives a completely different vibe to what we know as Tower in tarot. She's got her little tea here and crystals, so this can kind of help us think about where we're kind of neglecting ourselves a bit and focus in on ourselves a little bit more. Maybe, you know, take ourselves away from social media for a little bit and do something that isn't work related in a world where we're kind of being encouraged to be productive all the time and always be hustling. I've literally been in this exact moment before. I've had headphones in, I've been paddling on the beach on my own, fully clothed, feeling like a loon, looking like a loon, but just loving my life, and in sunset as well with birds around her. I just love this imagery. And the idea of like, instead of her being in front of a mirror, you know, with the typical like treating your body like the palace is of her like looking at herself, this is more about like realizing that you're worthy of where you stand and where you are and where you're dancing and stuff, and you're worthy of where you stand, like what you look like, and it doesn't matter if people are looking. And I don't think that this image like necessarily matches what it's saying, but when you really think, that's what I like about this deck, is like if you double think what's going on in the image, that's when you start connecting to it a little bit more. Tower, I wouldn't necessarily associate with unplugging and relaxing for a spell. There's even like a double meaning in for a spell, because that could be literally for relaxing to do a spell, or it could be for a spell as in for a moment or two. But the fact that she's making a tower with her body, and she's creating a mirror effect, like a reflection on the sea beneath her that she's dancing on, like on the ocean. I don't know if this is actually her dancing on water or just dancing on like sand that's sort of reflecting her body. That's where I feel like the mirror is in this image. So it's very kind of out of the box and just stunning. I just love the way these cards look, and the sort of the watercolors it almost looks like. Oh, look how nice this one is. This one makes me think of two people who sort of like daydreaming about their dreams and ambitions, and the fact it's called Stars is very similar to the Star tarot card, which is also about being able to manifest your every wish, because you know, most people would see the Star card in tarot as the wish card, the make a wish card. They're just sort of like thinking about what that means to them, like on her bed, maybe over at a sleepover, and they're just sort of glancing up at like all the things that they want to have, and they're kind of excited by that, and they're like sharing what that means to each other. But I like the fact that it's more than one person, so maybe have they got the same ideals or different ones? Because I always think that manifesting your wishes, your deep desires, is quite a personal thing. I wouldn't necessarily think that it involves, you know, somebody else knowing what those things are. This is a really cool image. Oh, I've only just noticed she's got a prosthetic leg. I love how she's got lots of different body types. She's considered lots of different people that might be using this deck, and they kind of just feel like heard. They feel a part of something, and I think that's really, really important. I also love that idea of her having like a feminine dress on, but she's got this big sword in her hand, and she's heading towards these massive dragons. So this would really make sense to anyone who feels like they're not capable of doing something that seems really out of their reach. Look how cute this is. Oh, and she's flying out that window. It almost looks like the second image of that first card we saw here. She's like flown out that window, and it says, "You never needed those wings to fly." And her wings are actually hanging out of that tower here. So to me, I guess this is about like self-belief. You know, she probably wasn't aware that she didn't need anyone else or anything else, just herself and her own belief in achieving something. It reminds me a little bit of like Peter Pan, and like how Wendy didn't believe that she could fly, but she had to like believe that she could, and she had to think of like positive, happy thoughts in order to do that. And I feel like that's quite symbolic in life in general. Like, in order to manifest stuff in our life, we've got to really believe that we can and have that positive frame of mind. Sword now, make the change. Cutting your hair is a very kind of spiritual act. It's like a way of shedding your skin and bringing about something positive and different for yourself. And I love that she's doing that with a sword. It almost makes it a lot more symbolic for her. So this could be encouraging out of the old, in with something new, something quite bold. Phoenix. Oh, I would think of, you know, rising from the ashes. Are these ashes? I don't know. There's just lots of smoke, and she's sort of just like dancing amongst a book that says Once Upon a Time. This, I don't necessarily see the correlation. Because it's called Phoenix, I'm wondering whether, you know, she, instead of reading the book, is creating her own ending, because her own story, her own past, her ashes, quote unquote, like mistakes she's made or what past she has had, is her own, and it's unique, and she can create her own ending. She doesn't need to rely on what the book says or like what the ending in that book has done. It's about her own. That's what I'm getting from it, especially because it says, "How's that for a happily ever after?" You know, she's almost saying that, like, I'll give you what happily ever after means. It's this, and she's like manifesting it herself. I don't know. I feel like a lot of these give room for your own interpretation. Look how cute this one is. Like, her little bathroom, are you joking? With the stars and the plants. And then red is just forgive. I almost like how in her face you can kind of see her like reflecting over what the situation is and maybe coming to terms with a lot of that. And we don't know how long she's been sitting there for as well. For all we know, these plants could have been growing around her for a long period of time. I think this is trying to represent how time has been gradually moving by, and over time she's been able to forgive over contemplating for a long period. Oh, look how gorgeous this is. I just love it. Oh, this like night sky with this golden sun that she's sort of painting herself with a paintbrush, and she's got a palette here. Like, she's creating the sun in the sky. I think that's really powerful. I would love to have this image framed. I absolutely love it. You can basically take the same messages from this as you can in the sun card in tarot, particularly because it looks like it might even be a child, and she's doing something quite like childish anyway. I mean, sort of, you know, painting, being quite creative. So that could encourage literally being more creative and being more artistic, but also embracing, you know, bright colors and just being more childish and fun, and the only happy, positive energy that you need in your life. Ugh, I love it. Oh my god, look how stunning. I love the fashion choices of this deck as well. Like, I like how all the clothes that they're wearing is stuff that I would wear. Oh, look at the moon up here. That can represent like intuition, going by the beat of your own drum, not needing anyone else to tell you what to like look like or how to dress. Expectations, don't seek anyone's approval. This little fairy on her knee here is basically, it could be representing like her own inner voice, and the only person that she needs to seek approval of is herself, perhaps. Look how cute this is. This reminds me of the Six of Cups. A lot of decks have like the mum or the parent like looking over at her kids over the table, but this one is thorns. Weave together the crown you deserve. And they're all kind of building together a rose crown down here. So this could be encouraging not only putting a crown on for yourself, but also remembering other people as well and helping them celebrate their own achievements as well as yours. So this also kind of gives me Three of Cups vibes, you know, like three people coming together and like celebrating each other's achievements and vibing with each other about that. I love it. This is one of my favorite images. Look, her hair is just gorgeous. Be honest with yourself. You know, she's putting her hand over her mouth here. She might be holding back something that she really believes or wants to say. You can kind of tell by her eyes and her eyebrows that she is thinking something that maybe doesn't feel comfortable to her, and she should probably be honest with herself in what that is in order to kind of get over it or work with it or do something about that. So yeah, I feel like almost looking at her face can maybe connect with your intuition in a way, because if you recognize your face in hers in the way she's like expressing herself, it might help you get in touch with those things that you're not being honest with yourself about. I just love how a lot of these cards have like night sky, like night kind of locations, and then a contrast with something very bright in the image. So this one's fire on this tree, and it says let them go. I love the idea of a burning tree representing letting something go, either a burning tree or like falling leaves from a tree. Trees are very symbolic for, you know, letting things go and gaining growth as well. So she's sort of processing the idea of saying goodbye to something that maybe she has built on for a while, because it's a pretty big tree, so it's quite an emotional card, but still an important one. Lavender, surround yourself with love. That's really cute. I just love how she has a little witch's hat on. She's throwing popcorn in her mouth, some tarot cards there maybe, some crystals, some plants. Like, I just want to jump into this card. There's some books, some candles, some coffee, lavender, phone there. She's having a cup of tea. They're just chatting, just vibing. Like, when I see this card, what I like about it is it makes me want to do what it's telling me to do. Surrounding yourself with love. Even if that means surrounding yourself with pets that you love. Like, it makes me want to vibe with like a little community of people like this. It looks very welcoming, and that's what I love about this deck. It makes me feel what I'm supposed to feel. She's so cute. Garden, something lovely will grow from this. Isn't she stunning? She's got this little flower in her hands here, and she's got this sword resting up against the trunk. And it's this tiny little promising, like she's got these dead flowers around her. Or at least they're quite droopy, and she's got this one little one here that she's concentrating on. Ah, look at this. Talk about real body image. We've got this girl with stretch marks, a cute little belly, and she's reading fairy tales. Of course she is. I love how she's focused on the book, and this is happening behind her. This is called Lioness, I guess because of her stripes on her butt here, her stretch marks, which is cool. Oh yeah, it literally says here, you've earned all of your stripes. Do you know what I like about this? Just thinking about this now, and like I said, your interpretation can vary wildly in this, because I think she's left a lot of room for being able to interpret different things. Like, it's not super obvious with this deck, which is what I like. She's so interested in what she's reading. The fact that she's in her bikini, just living her best life on the beach, she's not focused on her environment and her surroundings and the people around her who could potentially be looking at her, so much so that she doesn't even realize when a freaking mermaid is in the background and flipping its tail. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know whether this is what she's supposed to be showing in this image, but whereas she's like so zoned in on her book, she doesn't care about anything else. I don't know if that was deliberate, but I just like that. This reminds me of Ace of Wands. This is very Ace of Wands energy. I love how this is called Bitch Fire. How cool is that? Stand up for yourself. So this is very kind of Ace of Wands and Ace of Swords energy. It's like using your ideas, your passion, and your words to take a stand. Like, look at the, once again, the contrast of the night sky next to the flame, the fire, the gold. It's so beautiful. Lighthouse, don't doubt your worth. I am always enough. She's sort of hanging up some decor in her house. The fact she's hanging up an affirmation there could kind of encourage you to maybe do the same, or think of what your own ones are, or whatever you need to do to kind of remind yourself of your own worth again. Gorgeous, gorgeous card. Look at the contrast again. These two girls glancing at each other through the fire. Clover, release your guilt. They're collecting all of these 4-leaf clovers. It almost makes me think they're having a really intense conversation here, the way they're looking at each other. It makes me think that maybe they're sharing something that they felt guilty about doing, or they're sort of releasing their guilt by communicating it to each other. Obviously fire was on that tree as well, and fire in general is about like releasing and letting go of and burning. So maybe they're throwing their like areas of guilt like metaphorically into the fire, or physically they might be writing it on little bits of clover and throwing it in. I don't know, it's cool. This Melanie Martinez vibes, look at this puppet. Oh, she's being controlled. It's show and tell sort of vibes from Melanie Martinez, music video and film. Library, take control of your own narrative. So I love the idea of it being on top of those library books, and maybe that hand being the person who tells her how to write her life, write her story, write the ending, all of that jazz. But this is about snipping those little wires so she can dance in her own narrative. So that's really cool. That's a very obvious image, you know, that shows me someone who's being told how to write their own story. Oh, this is me every time I go on the train to go home. Confidence. I love that she's got this sword on her satchel there that might represent like being assertive, speaking your words. It comes with time and practice. So maybe the journey on the train represents patience and time and waiting to reach that place of confidence. She might even be struggling with the journey and taking that on her own. This is cool. Basic witch instead of basic bitch. She's got a little hat. She's got her potions down here, and she's doing some sort of spell in her little cauldron here, and a little crystal ball there. I just love it. So she's in her bedroom on her own, sort of concentrating on nothing but herself, away from friends, away from work, family, doing a little bit of her own business. Love her blue hair, and the fact that she's like drawing on her own wall. That's really cool, creating art in her own house. Look at her blue tights. I just love it. Mural. So maybe she's creating her own there. Be your own first priority. I like the fact that drawing on a wall is like seen as maybe a negative thing, because that's a space that typically you would put like other people's artwork on, or like wallpaper and stuff. But she's like, no, like I've got cool things to put on the wall, so why shouldn't I? So you could argue that some of these drawings don't necessarily go with what the text is. See, this is a good example of that. I think that it's a cool image. Like, I love the imagery. I love like the design of different items in the room and their clothes, like the star and moon on the curtains, and the fact they're doing some sort of seance in their bedroom, which is really cool. Think first before you judge though. Like, I don't necessarily know correlations of some of this stuff. Will I have to know the poetry to understand that? Justice is coming. Ooh, it almost looks like she's preparing for like good news, someone getting what they deserve, or she's getting what she deserves in a positive, karmic way. The idea of a sword being in an image about justice is really good. Also a baseball bat here, like is she going to be the one who serves justice to someone? I don't know. Protest. This is really cool. I feel like this is very self-explanatory. Start a revolution. All of these people have like signs outside this castle, and they're sort of like holding each other and encouraging each other to stand for what they believe in. It's such a pretty card, and like the pastel pink sky and stuff. We've got Feast, Slow Down and Celebrate Yourself. This gives me Nine of Cups vibes, when he's got all of those cups behind him and he's like living his best life. Or maybe even Nine of Pentacles, because she's about enjoying her abundance and the finer things in life, the stuff that she's created for herself, her money, etc. So it's about just taking time out of the hustle and bustle, the daily grind, and just getting a takeaway or eating loads of good food, or maybe just splurging out a bit of money on certain stuff. Number 30 is Castle. It's time for healing, not war. Oh, this gives me star vibes as well, in a sense. Like after that tower moment, when the tower card has crumbled down, you're left with all this just carnage and like wreckage and just dust, and the star is also about healing as well. It's a bit like how Buddhism was kind of made popular. That actually came about after a really big war. I'm researching it at the moment, and this emperor guy, this is a real life story. This emperor was looking over all the carnage that he'd created and realized like, actually this isn't the way forward. We need to heal each other, help each other. And this is a good card for anyone who has experienced a bad time or realizes there's a lot of time left for healing now, after maybe a busy period or just a little bit of a darker time. Universe. This is a really lovely card. I feel like I'd also love as a print. We're all just stardust. This kind of puts you in that place where you often find yourself when you're like stargazing and you just realize how small and insignificant we are when it comes down to it. Or it can make you think how connected we are to the universe, how the stars above us are basically just a reflection of what's happening around us on Earth. It kind of connects like the human hand with the universe, and I think that's really powerful and pretty. Escapist, come home to yourself. I like the idea of this feeling very secluded, almost hermit energy, working on like her inner peace, her inner work, and doing things that are personal and private to her in her own space, in her little jammies. She could even be writing down things that she wants to bring in for herself, reflecting on what that means for her. Nostalgia, this sort of reminds me of the Six of Cups as well. They're having a conversation and it almost looks like she's getting lost in maybe the way things were, or like memories or something. She's basically in her own little world. She's given off Pisces energy here, and this person is like trying to communicate with her and connect with her, but she's not listening. So that goes really well with focus on the here and now, because it almost seems like that's what she's saying to her. She's like, are you on this planet? Like, focus on what's going on around you rather than getting so lost in your head. I guess it's a bit like the Seven of Cups too. Voyage, so she's on a boat. Once again, there's a tale here that isn't being concentrated on because she's so focused on her map. You already have all the answers. So this makes me feel like the same thing as what I said about the other girl who is so kind of focused on something else that she's not realizing what's around her. So it's almost like she's looking for something that actually is right there. So maybe she's looking to see where she can find a mermaid, or maybe she's missing those shooting stars around her because she's so busy trying to look at like the right way to find it, or like specifically where it should be, when actually she doesn't need to hunt and look for answers. Just a suggestion. I don't know if that's actually what it means. Oh, the first male in this card, isn't that crazy? And what makes me laugh about this is that he's a shark and it says swim away from this situation. So like the first bloke turns up and it's like, nah, leave him. I like that she's a little bit of a bigger mermaid as well. Every mermaid I've ever seen is super skinny. So this card might make you think about who's not good for you. You don't need someone else to fix you. This is quite similar to the card before. She's got like this broken cup almost that looks like it's been glued back together. These sort of look like stretch marks. So she's kind of fixed that cup to make it look beautiful again. So maybe it's encouraging her to do the same for her because she could do that herself. I don't know. Grey, endings are inevitable. Oh, it looks like she's sort of just got done waving off that boat there, so seeing someone off. So maybe she's feeling a little bit nostalgic and sad, but it could just encourage that it kind of has to happen. You have to say goodbye sometimes, but you got to focus on the times that you had. Look how cute this card is. The kind of neon purple music notes around amongst the blue is so pretty. You can always rewrite the story. Don't quite know what's going on here, I'm going to be honest with you. Where's the music coming from? And why is there a shell down there? And why is she holding a stone? I have so many questions. I don't know. It's a really pretty card, but like sometimes I just get a bit lost. Oh, look at this little support system under the umbrella. Raindrops, take a chance on them. This is really cute because this is another card that makes me think like I would think of somebody who I imagine myself under that umbrella with if I'm trying to connect to my intuition, and I get a card like this, I'll be like, oh my god, I know exactly who this should be. This would definitely be a card that I would see as a sign if I was to receive it when asking about like somebody or like a love interest. I feel like these fairies must be very significant, but I can't really work out what they might represent. Is it their like inner voice perhaps again? That's so cute. I want to know what conversations they're having under that umbrella. Morning, the world awaits you. Oh, look at the sea outside. Encouraging that whole idea of every day being a fresh start and a new leaf and a potential. So don't like lose hope. Don't feel like you have to give up. It's having that positive frame of mind and that positive outlook and being ready to take on the world. 41, sundress, do it for you. And oh, look at this lady here has vitiligo. She's in this really like empowering stance. She looks very strong. She realizes that she doesn't need anyone else. You know, she is capable of anything and everything. She looks confident, perhaps regardless of her skin condition and how others might view her. This is lovely. My sister really thinks that looks like me apparently. Homeward, take yourself out on a date. Isn't that cute? Like, a lot of these cards are about like realizing that you're enough, you have enough, and you know, there's so many different meanings behind that. Like, you can take yourself out on a date, you don't need someone else to do that, you don't need someone else to fix you, you don't need someone else to make you feel confident, you don't need someone else to slay dragons, you know, physically, strength wise, you don't need to rely on someone else. She's taking in her surroundings there. There's a little bird. I love the idea of like that being her home, and then straight outside her home is just forest and trees. Oh, that's the sort of life I'm trying to manifest. This is gorgeous. Spaceship. They're in space. There's a spaceship here, but they're mermaids. They're like space mermaids. What is going on? It's so cool. There's a little spaceship here. Don't be afraid to sing. This is like the world card, I guess. They're like dancing, they're singing, they're celebrating their bodies, they're very confident. They're confident in their body, but also in their words and how they want to express that. And I guess I would take the same meanings as the world card to this. You can take it literally, like to sing, to dance, to express yourself in a physical form. But this also is about connecting to other people, I feel like. So vibe with other people who sing in the same ways as you do. Not literally, but just like your same ideals in life and ideas. Storm, every hurricane comes to an end. This is like the star card as well in tarot. Or the ten of swords, or the 3 of swords. So after a bad time comes a kind of break, a moment to appreciate the good because you've experienced the bad. Looks like she's just come out of like a rainstorm and finally she can sort of breathe the fresh air. I love the little puddles here and the clouds in the sky. It kind of makes you be able to like smell this picture. I can kind of like smell that smell you get after a rainstorm looking at this. And her little raincoat. Ooh, so cute. And last but not least, we have the back of the book image here, which is Throne. Your potential is endless. So it's almost like, you know, when all 3 of these girls are combined with all the energy that we spoke about in the rest of the cards, they can move freaking mountains. Imagine 3 women being in power like this. In a sense, I like to see this deck as mermaids being water and emotions, and witches being fire and enthusiasm and energy, physical energy, and princesses being swords, which is intellect, words, wisdom. But I feel like this kind of last card embodies all of these cards together in a sense. Stunning though, I love the pink thrones. And that's the deck. It's not too thick. It's easy to shuffle because it's not too thick. You can shuffle it this way or this way, and it's nice and smooth too. There's no sticking, and it's also makes it good for fanning as well. You can fan pretty easy with this deck because of that. Thank you so much for watching. If you like videos like this, do give me a thumbs up so I know, and let me know in the comment section that you enjoyed this so that I can do more reviews and unboxings, because I've got a lot of decks out there that need unboxing and reviewing on camera. So feel free to do that, and thank you very much for watching, guys. I will see you for my next one. Join me on social media such as Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. I have a tarot reading Facebook page and a tarot reading Instagram, so if you want to book a tarot reading with me, you can do that by going on the links down there below. Sending loads of love from my house to yours. Bye.